Yo, what's up, everybody? Aloha, friends. Today we're going to be talking about the Jake Edwards arrest. And first of all, I want to give a shout out to all my Patreon members: Michelle Lyons, Bobbi Jo Green, Tamara Seider, Kanoe Iseri, Pamela Santos, Brittnie Nitta, Luana Koanui, Kukino, Shylo Tavares, Lei Ilima Rapozo, Bobbi Green, and Christina K. Thank you guys so much to all my Patreons. You guys are the best. Just want to give you guys a shout out. If you want to support me on Patreon, the link will be in the chat. And today we are going to be going over the Jake Edwards arrest. For those of you who are in Hawaii or keeping up with Hawaii, then you know what is going on. It's getting pretty crazy right now. I know that it's all over the news. All over the news right now. What a crazy story. It's sad too, because we have like so much that we know about Jake. We know so much. Everybody's talking about him. Everybody's talking about what they know about the guy. I knew him. Not personally. I didn't have much interaction with him, but I did know of him. I investigated him briefly while I was undercover. And I do believe that he has a brother named Zach, if I'm not mistaken. I think Jake used to mess with graffiti back in the day. I know that there was like, if you look him up, if you look up his name, you will notice that there is some stories from back in the day. One in 2009, which I just posted. It's in my chat right now on YouTube. And then it was about, he was surfing and he had a best friend that died. Something like that. This is like 11 or 12 years ago. Just a young kid, man. And man, it's just sad to see how things went. Jake was arrested. We all saw the video and the pictures by, I think it was the crew guys that picked him up. It was the plainclothes guys. I did see that. It looked like he was really just kind of overwhelmed. It seemed like he gave up pretty easily. I know that there was some witness testimony. Some people were saying that they kind of saw what happened, and basically they swarmed the area, overwhelming the guy. I want to give a shout out to Tasha K. Aloha. Thanks for checking in. Kipoi Kai Lyons, Hawaiian Soul, PJ Tanag, CJ. What's up, guys? Thanks for coming through. Appreciate you. And then everybody on the Instagram that's checking in. Thank you, guys. Yeah, so apparently there was a stabbing. Seems like some kind of argument where Jake was arguing with a guy named Parker Trantham, who's also a young kid, probably around the same age. And I don't know, they had some kind of argument, disagreement, something like that. Some of the witnesses, they were arguing, and then he disappeared for a minute, went upstairs and came back down, and there was blood all over, and the cops were all over. So, man, that's messed up. Does anybody know who these guys are? Anybody have any history or experience with these guys in the chat? I know what's probably going to happen now. I'm imagining what happened was this. There was the argument. People saw them arguing. They probably gave descriptions of the suspect because they didn't know who he was. They just saw the argument, and then they saw the stabbing and the blood and all that good stuff. Called ambulance. And then when cops started getting the reports and speaking with the witnesses, they told them what they look like. They get description. That's usually the first thing you get, especially if there's like a suspect that fled the scene, especially a weapons call, and especially if you got serious bodily injury or death. So as soon as they find out who the suspect is, they put out an APB, and that all points bulletin basically. Aloha, Indomitable 92. What's up, Todd? Thanks for coming through, bro. They'll put out the APB and they'll go looking for the suspect. And in this case, they found him, I don't know, a mile away. He didn't get far. He was on foot. And so I know when I knew of Jake, he was super young, probably 15, and he used to write, and I forget what he used to write. I think he wrote Perk at first, something like that. But he was tagging, he was getting up all over my beat, like where I was working, so I constantly would see his graffiti. And so I started looking into him, and people were snitching, and if I had arrested somebody, they'd drop some names and tell me who all they were right with and whatever. No can defense. That happened 30 seconds from my house. I think happened Kauai, and then they got him over Hahaione. Am I right? Hawaii Kai Drive, something like that. So probably what happened is they put out an APB, cops started asking questions, and then somebody called in and said there was some dude hanging out front, matched the description. You probably got cops driving around looking for the suspects, and definitely saw somebody hanging around that was suspicious, matched the description. Seems like in the video that I saw, he was approached or at least arrested with like a black shirt on, some dark shirt. Usually what would happen is, like, let's say, for instance, in this case would be somebody calls in and says there's a Caucasian male with a black button-up shirt and shorts hanging out in front of the hotel, or hiding, seems to be hiding in bushes or around the trees or whatever. And that'll go over the radio, and someone will say, hey, I got multiple calls of a male matching the description hanging out Kauai Street or whatever, and all the officers will start heading that way. And that's probably what you saw. I noticed some of the residents and the witnesses said that the cops were asking questions and everybody was taping off the scene, making the scene safe, all the things that we're supposed to do as police officers. And all of a sudden, boom, all the officers just mobilized, hit their cars, took off. And that sounds typical of what would happen. They just got the call, this dude matches the description, and then a police officer probably called off with them and said, hey, I'm off with the suspect, and all the units came down to cover him, especially because there was a knife involved. Typically, guns are coming out. This dude is going to get proned out on the ground, and then they're going to put his hands behind his back, arrest him, stand him up, walk him to either the blue and white car, or they're going to walk him to the ambulance, especially if they drew guns on him or did any use of force at all. So Jake looks super skinny, so I wouldn't doubt if he was smoking ice. It's messed up because from what I remember, he wasn't like a poor kid. He came from like a family. I mean, he was always in Hawaii Kai. Every time I heard of him, or every time, we came across his name, he was always hanging out in Hawaii Kai. He used to hang out with them goon life dummies. They used to ride all over town. And I'm pretty sure he got an older brother named Zach, who I think was off island. But man, what a trip. How far you can go from being a surfer when you're 13 years old, doing well, and all of a sudden killing somebody, going to jail the rest of your life. I imagine he confessed, yeah. That's probably what happened. There's going to be blood, there's going to be evidence, fingerprints, so they're going to get him. This one's pretty tight. It seems to be. No Ken Defense says corner of Hawaii Kai and Hahaione. Caught him on Kawaihe. Okay. So it happened Hawaii Kai Drive in Hahaione, right by the school. And then they caught him Kawaihe, which is one street over from Kuli'o, if I remember correctly. I used to live at the corner of Kalani and Kuli'o and Kalani ana Ole. So I know the area well. I know it's shaking people that live in that area, because Hawaii Kai is supposed to be the place, that stuff doesn't happen, especially broad daylight. Can you imagine what's going on in this kid's life if broad daylight he's stabbing somebody? Okay, the chat. Salinas 808. I think Jake was 23, and if I'm not mistaken, Parker was 21, maybe somewhere around the same age, but I know Jake was 23. Jake Edwards. Yeah, it looks like a lot of you guys checking in on the chat are either in the area, live in the area, work in the area. You're always over there. Yeah, man. So what's going to happen now is this guy, they're scrambling to make this case right now. He's getting booked. He's not going to get bail right now. They're going to work real hard, and they're going to charge him in the next 48 hours. And then he's going to go in for his preliminary, and man, there's no coming back from that. So my condolences to the family of Parker Trantham. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about like what kind of a dude Parker was. I don't know, but it doesn't really either way he died. Like there's no coming back from that. No matter what kind of dude he was, I don't know. But man, nobody deserves to get stabbed like that. So condolences to the family, and shout out to the Honolulu Police Department. You guys caught him quick. He had a neighborhood that was really stressed out for a little bit. Can you imagine having a stabbing suspect on the run, get kids in school, if you're at work? So HPD, they did what they were supposed to do. They mobilized, they worked together, they caught him. I don't know if they have a murder weapon. I don't know. My guess is they're looking for it or they found it. A lot of times what guys will do is when they run away, they'll throw them in a garbage can or they'll throw them in the water. And this happened right by the water. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be that big a deal to go down to Kuli'o. You know that swamp? Got that nature preserve at the end of Kuli'o? Just on the other side of the canal where the birds, you get it's like a protected wetland for the birds. A lot of times people throw them in the canal. Got that canal right there by Kuli'o. So people usually throw weapons in the canal, or they throw them in the water, the ocean, or they'll throw them in the garbage can. So, and sometimes we'll get a phone call from somebody like a day later saying, hey, I found a knife in my backyard or whatever, got blood on it. So that happens all the time too. I wouldn't doubt it. But they either have it or they're going to find it soon. It's pretty typical. And I'm seeing a lot on Stolen Stuff Hawaii. I'm seeing a lot of talk about like crime really going off in Honolulu. And my boy Nick made a comment on the Facebook channel, and he said, you know, they at ART, at annual recall training, they talked about the crime stats and how a lot of people feel like crime's going up, but that crime is really at a really low point actually right now. It's just that there's so much social media and you hear about the things that happen, which back in the day you wouldn't hear about it as much. So it does seem like things are really going off, but the truth is people are on their phones more, people are following on social media, and it seems as though there's more crime in Hawaii. There's probably more of certain crimes happening in Hawaii. That's pretty typical. Like you might see like a rise in robberies over a certain period of time, or you might see a rise in murders over a certain period of time. Whatever it is, it just happens to go that way. When we get murders, we get a few of them. I remember being in the squad room and hearing about the murders that happened like the day before I came on shift or whatever. And then by the time I left, there was another murder in some other district. So for whatever reason, it comes in bunches like that. And sometimes it seems like there's more crime, but really it's actually pretty low. And not only compared this year to last year, but also historically. Like this decade has been historically low. Pretty sure since like the 60s, 70s. So it's actually safer in Hawaii. It's just that it doesn't appear to be safer. And also the world's a smaller place because of social media. Everybody's getting around, everybody's going more places, everybody's moving faster. Whereas before, 20 years ago, you might just go grocery shopping that day. You might go to Dyke and go grocery shopping and come home, unload your groceries, and that was your day. Like that was the thing you did that day. Whereas now you got to hit like post off. You can hit all that all at the same time. You can hit the post office. You go grocery shopping at 2 or 3 different stores. Go get your oil changed. You know what I mean? And because of cars and technology, we can get to things faster. So we're just spread out all over the place. But I do know that the news is covering a lot more crime. That's the other thing. So much more is going off on the news. Now you got Hawaii News Now, KITV, and KHON. I follow all those guys on Facebook, Instagram, and constantly getting updates in my feed. So it feels like so much more is going on. And then something like this hits, and it's like, that's tough to watch, man. So I don't know what's gonna come of this case, but we'll keep up on it, and I'll make sure that I keep you guys updated. I know that this is gonna take a while, this one. I bet you a year before he gets sentenced. I think COVID's making things go a lot longer too. So it's probably going to be about a year. Waya O says, you are quite right in saying tech makes the difference. Old days you would not hear of serial killers, massacres, etc. because it took forever to reach your village. And Kim said there's more crime every day, something's popping off. And then you also got to think about this too. You also got to account for the fact that there's crime in different areas that there wasn't before. So you can get more crime. Let's say Hawaii Kai. People are tripping that this kind of stuff happens in Hawaii Kai, but think about it. It's not so hard for a guy to get from town to Hawaii Kai. It's easy. And not so much murders. Like, it is pretty shocking that it happened in Hawaii Kai in the street in broad daylight. But you're going to get burglaries, you're going to get robberies, you're going to get thefts, you're going to get UEMVs, like when somebody breaks in your car, unauthorized entry into a motor vehicle. You're going to get those because people are going to leave town, go into Hawaii Kai or these nicer neighborhoods, and they're going to break into the cars because people are so comfortable there. They leave their car doors open or they leave more valuable stuff in their cars. So you're going to see that kind of stuff. But to see a murder, and I wish I knew more about the guys. Some people have been hitting me up, telling me that they grew up with Jake or talking to me about Parker. So it definitely it definitely hit home for a lot of people. And Hawaii Kai is not a big place. And for people that went to school Hawaii Kai, I mean, people know this guy. And Kapoi Kai Lyons said, Did you hear anything about crew and SSD looking for something in Mokuleia? I did. I heard that there were specialized units in Mokuleia looking in the sand, like a patch of sand. They're looking for Katana. I didn't hear if they found her or anything like that. I don't know what that's about or how they got that information. I don't know if the guy that we were talking about earlier, Travis, maybe told them where he put the duffel bag. But I haven't heard anything yet as far as if they found a duffel bag or found anybody. Habit Lacrosse says, have you ever come across a police impersonator? Yes, all the time. HPD has like these serial impersonators. We have a list of people that we constantly catch driving around with a blue light, which in Honolulu, blue lights are prohibited because you can act like you're a policeman. And I can't tell you how many times we made cases for people impersonating a police officer. I told this story once, I think. I'm not really sure, but stop me if you remember me telling this. But I pulled over the Hawaii 5-0 car. Like the car that Alex Olafin would drive. You know that Corvette? Was it a Corvette? Or no, Camaro. I think it was a Camaro. One day I'm driving my wife. We were having our third baby. We're driving out to Castle. So, you know where the traffic gets real bad. And all of a sudden, I notice that traffic is so bad. It was backing up and I couldn't believe it. And I'm stressing out because we're about to be late for this meeting and my wife was super pregnant. So all of a sudden I veer off to the side to try to look ahead and I see a Camaro with blue lights flashing. A motor car. A policeman. Driving with its lights flashing. And so everybody, because he had his lights flashing, the people in front of him are slowing down and pulling over. They think they're getting pulled over by a police officer. So that's jamming up traffic. And so I'm getting frustrated. So finally, everybody's pulling over. Well, when I get a break and it goes to 2-lane, I start pulling up. And I pull up next to this Camaro. And it comes across my mind that HPD doesn't approve Camaros for their motor program. That's not an approved motor car. So I know that's not a policeman. But they got lights where policemen would have lights. So I call dispatch and I run a check on the car. Because they're pulling people over. Like people are pulling over thinking that they're getting stopped by the police. Well, every time they pull somebody over, they drive around them. And then they pull the next guy over. And then they drive around them. They pull the next guy over. And they drive around them. Meanwhile, traffic's backing up. So I run the check. And the plates are Hawaii plates. It's a real Hawaii plate. But when I run it, it comes back no record. And now when you run a plate and it comes back no record on dispatch, all red flags go up. So I had to make sure that I was reading the plate right. And I read the plate back to her. She said, that's no record. So usually what happens is people, they like use marker or they alter the plate so that it reads one certain number. Like if it's going to be a 1, they make it a I. Or if it's going to be a, let's say a 8. If it's a 3, they make it a 8. That's common for people who steal cars. So I run it. It says no record. So I said, well, I'm driving behind a car right now. It's a Camaro with blue lights flashing, and that's the plates. So dispatch sends out an APB for the guys in District 4. It's basically Kailua at this point. And I went to my meeting with my wife and the OBGYN or whatever for the baby. So I'm in there about an hour. I come out, I'm starting to drive home. I get a phone call from the lieutenant in the district, in District 4. He's like, can you fill out a statement for us, please? Because we just arrested some guy for impersonating a police officer. Something like that. I think he was arrested. So I said, yeah, I'll fill out a statement. I'll do whatever I got to do. So they fill out a statement. And I filled out a statement and turned it in, if I'm remembering correctly. Well, all of a sudden, I show up to work the next day. And in my cubicle is the front, like the thumbnail picture for Hawaii Five-0 with Alex O'Loughlin standing in front of a silver Camaro with blue lights shining. And I'm like, that's weird. Like, I just pulled over a car. It looked just like that. Underneath it was a sheet. It says, Korenic, just so you know, so now you know what the Hawaii Five-0 car looks like. Apparently, here's how this works. Hawaii Five-0, Magnum PI, all these guys that use HPD and have like HPD as extras or some type of a role in their show. They have to keep, they use our real logos for HPD. They use the Honolulu Police logo. It's the same pinstriping. Everything's the same. You really wouldn't be able to tell. They want it as realistic as possible. The problem is they're not allowed to take those cars off the lot because they cannot drive on a real Hawaii road with those cars because all the plates are fake. So typically what they do is they will trailer those cars to the site and then they'll use them for the show. So, you know, when you see like Hawaii Five-0, like high speed chases, you guys probably remember like them always shutting down the H3 for like Hawaii Five-0, whatever. So they'll have special duty officers posted at the front and the back of whatever the shooting area is so that they're monitoring and keeping everybody safe. And then they have permits for those cars and for the blue lights for them to do this operation. It's a whole big deal. It's a whole bunch of stuff they got to fill out. Well, apparently what happened is they had this one dude, I think he was Alex's body double or stunt double, or what we call a stand-in. So he looks like Alex kinda, and when they don't need Alex's face in a shot, if it's from the back and if Alex is talking to a guy, they only need him for the shots that you could see Alex's face. Well, when they switch the camera around and shoot the other way, they just need a guy that looks like Alex from the back. So this is his double. We call it a stand-in. And I think this was Alex stand-in, if I'm not mistaken. And he was driving, he had another guy in his passenger seat. So what the word came back that apparently this dude went to go get lunch or whatever, and he took the set car to go get lunch. Well, while he was getting lunch, some Japanese tourists saw him and wanted to take a picture with him. So he was being nice and he pulled over on the side of the road and he turned on his lights and he took a picture in front of the car with the tourists. So the lights were going in the back, so they got to get a picture with the Hawaii Five-0 car. So the problem is, and any daytime officer knows what this is, whenever you turn your lights on, when you work in daytime, you forget that they're on because you can't see a reflection. At nighttime's easy. You use your lights, it lights up the whole neighborhood like blue lights flashing. So when you're done with your case or you don't need your lights on anymore, you shut them off because it's blinding. But in the daytime, you can't see the lights. It's too bright. So I can't tell you how many times I've been on the job and I've been driving daytime because I was working overtime or had court or whatever, and someone goes on the radio and says, lights. So everyone checks and sees their lights because that means somebody driving around with their lights. Well, apparently this guy pulled over to take a photo with the tourists, and then forgot to shut the lights off, got back in the car, and he's driving. And he doesn't know they're on. But everyone in front of him is pulling over on Kailua. They think they're getting stopped by the police. He just keeps pulling up, and he's looking at everybody like, what's going on? Finally, I pull up to him, and I told him roll his window down, and I said, hey, your lights are on. And he says, oh, shoots. And he shuts his lights off. I had already called patrol. I was trying to see if I could get more from him to find out what was going on. I was like, this is weird because he's not scared. This isn't a stolen car, but his lights are on, and that's not a police car. Like, he's doing wrong, but he's not. He doesn't seem like seems guilty. You know what I mean? He doesn't have that guilty attitude. So apparently what happened was he wasn't supposed to do what he did. And the lieutenant that I spoke with on the phone said that this guy got fired. I don't know how true that is. I don't know why somebody would fire him for that. It was an honest mistake or whatever, but apparently he wasn't supposed to take the car off the set. He did, and then he got caught, and I think they got him on impersonating a police officer. He probably beat it because he didn't have any intent, but he still would have caught the case. They just probably referred it to the prosecutors, and it probably got dropped. I don't know what happened, but that was the rumor. So now I feel bad. What's up, Miss Honu? So yeah, I hope the guy never loses his job. Poor guy. But yeah, to your question, I did come across several police impersonators. We had one dude who would do it all the time. All the time. We had dudes that were pulling people over. We had police impersonators that were robbing people, pulling them over and then robbing them. One dude pulled over a guy, told him to step out of the car, got in his car and took off with the car and left the police car, which was a stolen car that he put a blue light in. So that stuff happened all the time. It was not McGarrett, Brother Kamu. It was McGarrett's stand-in, if I'm not mistaken. So it looked like McGarrett, but it was his double, the guy that they use for shots where you don't need McGarrett's face. Aloha Ambition. I never patrol Waianae, but the unit that I was in, once a month we would go on sweeps where we would, like, there was this one time, you guys remember when the guy was robbing all the 7-Elevens and all the Chevrons? He robbed like 31 in a year. You guys remember that? Well, when stuff like that happens and we got series where we got people that are robbing stores or whatever, there were several times that I can remember we had robbery series. Like this, I don't know if you remember that one young boy. He was 16 years old and he was robbing old ladies on Kapiolani by Ala Moana Shopping Center. Down Kapiolani all the way down King into Chinatown. He was knocking over old ladies, taking their chain. Well, when stuff like that happens, then we got to start squeezing people because we got to find out who they are. When we find fingerprints at a scene from a suspect, but we don't have him in the database, then we kind of lose it a little bit. We kind of freak out because if you have been arrested before and then you commit a crime and we get your fingerprint, we have you on database because you've been arrested and fingerprinted. But if you've never been arrested and we're finding your fingerprints, we don't have anything to compare it to. So typically what the police department will do is they'll go round up everybody with warrants. Because, you know, if you have a warrant, you ever been stopped by a cop, you know that most of the time you don't get arrested on your warrants. It ain't like that in the mainland. That's one thing about Hawaii. I remember being in academy and them telling us, just so you know, everybody in Hawaii's got a warrant. And they weren't lying. It was like, it seemed every single person I ever ran into had a warrant. It was so rare that I run somebody and they didn't at least have a $50 warrant from some traffic ticket they never paid. But in Michigan and the mainland, if you got a warrant, you're going to jail even if it's $50. In Hawaii, I only arrested people who had warrants over like 11,000. Unless they had tons of warrants or whatever, typically. Just because you got to pick your battles. There's stuff popping off on the radio, you got to get out. So for you to arrest somebody for a $50 traffic warrant that all they got to do is go pay $50 for the ticket. Well, you're going to be off for 2 hours with the arrest, taking them to the hospital, taking them to booking, typing your report. Meanwhile, dudes are covering your shift, covering your beat, taking your cases. Now they all salty because you off the road because you arrest a guy for $50. Some normal guy driving to work because he forgot to pay a ticket or whatever. So typically, you don't get arrested for your warrant, especially if they're Manini warrants like $1,000 and less. However, when guys run their mouth or act up, or when the cop tries to tell them like, hey, you got to stay out of the street or whatever. Usually if an officer is telling you something that's like some stupid rule that you got to do, it's because people are watching. Like daytime, there were so many people where I had to address things because other people were watching. And then people can make complaints that you didn't address when the guy jaywalked. It sounds petty, but it happened all the time. Where you're standing there, some dude jaywalks in front of you. In your head, you're thinking, all right, dummy. Like if you get hit, it's on you. Nobody wants to give a jaywalking ticket. So you just let him go. But then somebody walks up to you and say, hey, you going to let that guy walk across the street? If that was me, you would have gave me a ticket. How come you're not ticketing that guy? So typically, you don't want to give tickets for that kind of stuff. And typically, you don't want to arrest people for their warrants. They're small warrants. That's just how it is. You got other stuff going on. But when we would have those robberies, we do these sweeps. Operation Sweep. Operation Pickup. Operation you name it. And we'd go out and anybody who had a warrant, whatever you needed to make a traffic stop based on probable cause or stop a guy on his bike with no bike light, no reg on his bike, whatever it is, then you stop them. If they got warrants, they go in. It's called zero tolerance. So on those sweep nights, we would go out. We'd get assigned to whatever districts. And several times I got assigned to Waianae. And you know when you're pulling him over, you're like, oh, this poor dude. He's got to go to jail like he's got a warrant. But the reason for that is because they want to bring in everybody with the warrant so they get fingerprinted, they get booked. Now we got their fingerprint. So if they ever commit a crime, we can like link them to it. That's kind of the idea. That's the philosophy behind it. Habit Lacrosse says, what's the fastest speeding ticket that you've heard of? Well, after a certain miles per hour, it's no longer speeding. So you get arrested at a certain point for like reckless driving or whatever. And I had one dude dig out. I had one Hawaiian sovereignty dude dig out from me in Waianae. He was in a big black truck. And he didn't have Hawaii plates. He had the Hawaiian sovereign plates. They were like black. And he dug out lights and everything. Adam Rogers official said, tell him about one of the times you hooked up with a Mahu for insider info. Would have been one of your girls. One of your queens. Yeah, so the dude dug out from me and he must have been doing 100 miles an hour and I lost him. Because it's just one lane out there. One lane each way. And he took me all the way back into the homestead. Lost him. He got away. It was early on in my career. I never saw a plate like that before. First time I ever seen a Hawaiian sovereign plate. It was like Kingdom of Hawaii or something like that. It was so loud. He must have been doing 100. So I couldn't read the plate. I couldn't even give dispatch the plate. And I had a guy with me, my classmate. Who did I have with me that day? Taz. He was driving a huge black, like F-250, F-350, lifted. Habit said, what's the coolest subset in the department? SWAT, undercover, cyber people. I mean, that's subjective, right? But there's different reasons people go to different units at HPD. One could be for the schedule or the lifestyle, right? So everybody wants to go to narco if they want the lifestyle, because you have an exemption on your facial hair and your grooming standards and things like that, because you go undercover a lot. So narco for the lifestyle. You don't have to go to the main police station. You are basically wearing street clothes, and you have an exemption on facial hair and how long your hair can be and all that stuff. And nobody really bothers you in narco. You kind of have your own place where you report and do your own thing, because you're working with sensitive stuff that you don't want other cops to know about, because a lot of it's undercover. But then if you're going for lifestyle like SWAT, we call it SSD at HPD. We call it SSD. And SSD, the Specialized Services Division, that's probably the best lifestyle, because you work out every day. And you only work when you have to serve TROs or paperwork for the courts on somebody that has a gun. So typically for TROs, police officers will serve TROs. You'll show up at lineup and there'll be folders on the wall according to the beats. And there's like 20 beats in each district. There's 8 districts. So you're talking 160 beats on the island, basically. Each beat gets a policeman, or maybe 2 policemen get 3 beats to share. And you'll come in and there'll be like a TRO in your box. That means that you got to serve your TRO on your beat, especially if you work daytime. Nighttime, you don't have to worry about it because you're not allowed to serve TROs after 10. And the thing is, if you run the guy's name and he's got guns registered to him, you as patrol aren't allowed to serve that warrant. So you send it to SSD. SSD will serve the warrant. So they'll go there because they have the equipment. They'll serve the warrant. And usually they take away your guns if you have a TRO. But other than that, they only get mobilized for call-outs like barricade suspects, suspicious, like bombs, things like that. And those guys, they have the best life, because they basically just work out every day and train every day. So they'll work out in the gym for half the day, and then they'll go do their training, like their room entries, their mass shooter drills, their sniper training, the canine training. That's all part of SSD. And then after that, I would say like the crew units, because the crew units are technically not considered specialized. Crew units are considered support. So they are patrol. So they can stay forever. There is no minimum, or there is no maximum. For all specialized units like SSD, you can only stay 5 years before you got to push out. Then if you get promoted and make a different rank, you can go back to SSD and you got another 5 years. So that's how that works. But in crew, you're technically patrol, and patrol doesn't have a max time limit. You don't get forced out after 5 years. So that's the fun one, because you're in plain clothes, but you're still doing police work. And you get to work out. Usually those guys get like the first hour of their shift, they're allowed to work out. Because they got to be goons. They got to be like big dudes that can handle stuff. And I get that. I understand that. But then you got other things too. Like you can be in, if you really like technical stuff, then you can be a part of our IT. And I think some guys go to traffic because you make tons of money with traffic, because you're writing tickets and you always got court. Because if you fight the ticket, you go into court. Now the cop gets to go to court, and that's on overtime. So that's good money. Solo bike is good money. YO says, what do you think the reason is we never ever can get a highway patrol? Well, we have a highway. Our highway patrol is our traffic. Because it's an island. You don't have that much highways. So you got the solo bike guys and the traffic guys that patrol the highways. They don't want more agencies because they already have a hard time with resources. That's why you don't see the sheriffs out there too much. You got sheriffs that are out there, they only patrol the state roads. Or the county roads, I should say. So you'll see the sheriffs doing their thing. But for the most part, HPD's traffic is the highway patrol. Salinas808 says, you got to get pepper sprayed for every position? Yeah, but only once. You just got to get pepper sprayed to get in the department. And technically, you don't have to get pepper sprayed. Technically, they can't make you get pepper sprayed. But just being honest, you don't want to be the only dude who didn't get pepper sprayed. If your class leader gets pepper sprayed, the guidon gets pepper sprayed, all these dudes getting pepper sprayed, and they come to you and you're like, no, I don't want to. You're probably going to quit soon anyway. Because you'll never live it down. And that gets in your head, especially in academy. Phil Bell said, biggest drug bust. Oh, they get real big, Phil. But my good friend just busted somebody with a baggie like this of crystal meth. And, I mean, it must have been, I don't even know how much it was, but huge crystals. I've seen huge rocks, like inch by inch rocks, which is crazy to see. But they get real big. My biggest, I think, was like 7 different drugs. From crystal meth to bars of Xanax to codeine, coke, crack, heroin, and a bunch of pills. But I think had like 200 or 300 pills of ecstasy. For me, that was a score. But they never went to jail. Because the prosecution said that I couldn't prove it was theirs. It's called constructive possession. It was in the car. But the car wasn't registered to them. So all they had to say is, hey, it was in the car when we got in the car. Which is crazy to think about it. Kapoi Kai Lyons said, how do you feel about those cops that shot the mom in front of the kids in the mainland a couple weeks ago? Kind of kind of off topic. Feel about the cops that shot the mom in front of the kids. I don't know that story. I'll have to look into it. Hawaiian Soul said, today had a big bust. Was on HHN today. I'll have to check it out. PJ Tanog said, what is the carry protocol when off duty? No can or must? Have to. So the policy for HPD is that you have to have your gun available, reasonably available. So it doesn't mean you have to have it on you at all times, but you have to be able to get to it if you need it. So typically officers have it on them all the time. Now, some of the older guys, it's just like humbug to carry around your gun all the time. But if they're motor, they got them in the car anyway. They usually have like a safe in the car, so they always got it with them. They get used to not having it on them. But until you make motor, you're still checking out a car every day. So you typically carry your gun. But let's say you go to the beach. You can't have them in the beach because you can't leave them, and they can't go in the water. But you can't just leave them in your car either because that's not safe. Everybody knows if they ever lock their car if they ever went Waikiki and parked on the Alawai and then walked to the beach or whatever, they come back, their car is either towed or broken into. So typically, cops will have it in a safe. If they're smart, they have it in a safe. I never had a safe in my car, so I would hide it. But if they broke in, they were going to get my gun. But you have to have it reasonably ready at a moment's notice. The reason why is police officers are police officers 24/7. In Hawaii, it's a part of your contract The contract states that you are responsible to enforce the law even when off duty. And because of that, you got to have your badge, gun, and handcuffs ready at a moment's notice. So the protocol was you needed your badge, your ID, your gun, your bullets, and your handcuffs and handcuff keys ready and accessible 24 hours a day. But then if you did something off duty, you get in trouble. If you arrest somebody, most of the time, you're supposed to call patrol. You're supposed to make the scene safe and then call patrol, and patrol comes and does all the arrests and all that good stuff, and you just fill out a statement. Yo, we had a policeman in a robbery once. We had a policeman in the bank when it's getting robbed. So, and he never have his gun. In line, shotgun, a dude at the door with the shotgun, a dude with a pistol robbing the tellers, and he's in line and no more gun. So you have to. The carry protocol when off duty is you have to carry, because in Hawaii we get paid standard of conduct pay, which is basically like this pay that we receive because the department is requiring you to be basically on duty even when you're off duty. So it's called standards of conduct pay, which is why that when you do something wrong off duty, they can get you in trouble, because technically you are being paid and are even on the clock when you're off the clock. So you can do something that's unbecoming of an officer while you're off duty, and you can get in trouble for violating that policy. Technically, you're supposed to follow all policies and procedures even when off duty. It's a hard concept for like a civilian to wrap their head around, but basically, you're a cop 24/7. We can't just give you your gun for the 8 hours you work. We can't just take your badge at the end of the shift. This isn't a security guard. This isn't a armored truck driver. You are a cop, even when you're not a cop. So they had to pay you for it. This way they can get you in trouble. Love the stories from your HPD days, bro. Mahalo for sharing. Thanks, bro. I hate saying Low Life, but you got your name Low Life. But thank you, Low Life. I like hanging out with you guys. Flying Hawaiian, how's it, my brother? Hey, what's up, Flying Hawaiian? Thanks for checking in. Best acts of kindness you've seen on duty. I mean, honestly, that happened all the time. That happened all the time. Helping old ladies cross the street. To my FTO, the guy that taught me in my first phase in Waikiki, his name was Tyler. Good guy, solid guy. Love that dude. He got an award once because his neighbor came over the house bloody or something like that and crying and said that my husband was stabbing me or something like that. So he grabbed his gun and his handcuffs and he ran next door, called it in, ran next door, and the dude had like stabbed his wife a bunch of times, something like that. And he helped detain that guy. That kind of stuff is kind, if you ask me. That's what's crazy. But like officers pay for people's meals, and officers, they do everything they can for kapuna, like people crossing the street. Or sometimes you get phone calls for like stupid calls that are kind of annoying, but you get there and it's like some old lady who just doesn't know how to, she can't take her garbage out or whatever. So you take the garbage out for her. The trash. Sorry. The rubbish. You guys call it rubbish. I've been in Michigan too long. 3 years already. I saw my first 4Runner today, guys. If you didn't see it on my Instagram. I saw my first 4Runner, I swear, in 3 years. In Detroit, it's Motor City, it's Motown. So nobody drives foreign cars in Detroit. It's super rare. So when you see we see Toyotas and Hondas and stuff. We see them, but not 4Runners. It's not super popular. That was sad. The mom gunned down in front of her babies. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I didn't. I'll look into that. But typically, and I say typically because not only the majority, but 99.99% of the time when a policeman shoots somebody, it's because there was a lethal force required. If it was in front of her kids, that's really sad. But it doesn't change like the lethal force situation. Regarding the highway patrol, your answer, yeah, I was told that years ago when I was active in another department, there was another push to get one. Thanks anyhow. Yeah, they're constantly pushing, but you remember like there was a time where they got their guns taken away? Who was that? Was that the sheriffs, yeah? Or something happened with their training expired. So when there's no funding and no training, think about it. Sheriffs will use HPD to arrest dudes. Like, they'll book them with us. Sheriffs run the jail. They'll hook guys up, take them to us for booking. So when you have one department using the other's facilities, there's obviously like a priority issue there. They need to get those guys some funding so they can... Because sheriffs typically only take care of the airport and the courthouse, the Capitol, and a few of the roads. Kapoi Kai Lyons said she had a knife. That's it. She had a knife. The sad part is that she had a knife in front of her kids with the policeman, because that was going to happen. The officer must feel so bad. I feel so bad for both parties. Yeah, it's sad when anybody gets shot. Did she die? I don't know if she died. Oh, in sporting events? Yeah. Oh, like, yeah, we would see sheriffs at Aloha Stadium. But they also used us, you know what I mean? HPD. I used to work all the football games. I was at all the football games. I used to love that event. What's the credential things you need to start to become a police officer in Oahu? There's nothing. You need a high school diploma, and then you got to pass the test. And in my experience, in my case, 2,100 people signed up to take the test. 700 showed up. So that means like, what is that? 35% showed up. And only 50% of those who showed up passed. So half of them failing the test right off the bat. And the test is not easy. It wasn't easy. I was worried. And I got an 83. I scored an 83 on my test. And I studied hard, like how to take a test. It's not so much about the things you've done that will help you become a police officer in Oahu. It's about the things that you've done that will hurt your chances. There's less people that don't meet the requirements than there are people who have disqualified themselves. Every single week I get people hitting me up on Instagram saying like, I'm trying to become a police officer. This is what I've been doing. This is what I did in my past. Does this disqualify me? And a lot of times it's yes. A lot of times, like opiate use, especially, you know what I mean? Like if you've been addicted to oxy or you got arrested for heroin or you ever did heroin and you admit to it, like chances are it's a no-no. Well, rest in peace to that lady. She died. Somebody doesn't have a mom now. That's horrible for the kids. Hope somebody take care of them. Brother Kamu says, what is the questions? The questions are like memory and comprehension. So they'll give you a report to read. You'll read the report. And then you'll have to turn the page. And they'll say, don't turn the page. You got to leave that page closed. You cannot reference. So based on what you read, here's 10 questions about that report. How tall was the third guy And what color coat was the Portuguese guy wearing? You know, what color shoes was the Popola guy wearing? And what was the address of the Holly guy? Like, your questions will be about the report. It's a full page. You'll have to read the whole report and try to memorize it. You get 5 minutes and you turn the page and then it asks you 10 questions about that and you can't look back. Then they'll show you a picture of a guy, like a mugshot, and it'll have all his stats. Height, weight, address, eye color, hair color, and the kind of car he drives, 3 different license plates, and how many kids he's got and what their names are. You have 5 minutes to memorize it. You flip the page, and then you got to answer questions. What is the birth date of his oldest child? Well, you had 3 birth dates, 3 ages, 3 different kids, hair colors, eye colors, all the stuff you're trying to memorize. So a lot of comprehension, stuff like that. And they want to know that you can write. They want to know that you can add. They want to know that kind of stuff. The ones that people DM you about. Like people ask me, I did this drug. Is that disqualifying me? Or I was arrested 3 months ago for domestic violence. Am I disqualified? And the answer is yes. They want like at least 5 years from an arrest is what's typical. There's probably exceptions, but that's typically how it works. What is your best de-escalation tactic? So it starts off with the verbal judo out front. You got to make sure you're talking to the guy right away. Make sure he knows that you respect him, that you like him, that you don't want this to go bad, but you're ready to go if it's going to go bad. So typically what I would do is, if I saw a guy and I knew he had a big warrant, he's not going back to jail. Like let's say I'm at Kaulavela Mall. Kaulavela is like north off Vineyard. And if I run into some guy nighttime, it's dark, and I know he got $100,000 warrant. He doesn't want to go to jail. He's been on the run for 3 months or whatever. When I'd stop him, I'd usually right away tell him, hey, just so you know, I know about your warrant, and I want you to know that I got no hard feelings against you, and I don't want anything to go bad. But if you're going to run, now's the time. Because I'm going to catch you. I'm not going to stop until I take you to jail. So we could do this 2 ways. You can be cool, and I'll take care of you. I'll help you out. Let you call your wife or your grandma or your daughter. I'll give you a cigarette. And I'll make sure I take care of you. I'll put in a good word with the lieutenant saying you were cooperative. Or you can dig out, which I think you want to do. If you're going to dig now because I'm ready to run. And usually it's such a trip in their head that you just said that to them. I don't know why, because usually what criminals have on you is they have the element of surprise. Once they lose that element of surprise, they feel like they don't have an advantage. So when you say, hey, what's your name? Or you know his name. His name's Jake Edwards, right? Because you know the guy's face. And you know he's got 100K. He tells you, my name's Chemo. My name's Kalani. That was a big one. Keoki, Keola. Those are my most popular. Kavika. Kavika is probably my most popular name that I got when they were lying to me. My name's Kavika. Kavika what? They say Kavika Keloa. I got that one a lot. I got Kavika Kalani once. I got John once. I said, what's your name? He said, John. So what's your last name? He said, Johns. I said, Johns. So I know they're lying. And they're thinking, wait for this guy to turn his head and go grab his radio or talk to his partner. I'm going to dig out. And then I got the element of surprise and I'm gone. But if the first thing you say to him is, listen, I know you probably want to dig out. And if you're going to do it, now's the time. Because my partner's not here yet. Your best chance to getting away from me is to run right now. But I'm going to chase you. And a couple times I said, hey, listen, we can either, if you're going to fight me, you can fight me now. Or You can run and we can fight when I catch you. You look like you want to fight. You look like you're not going to go easy. And it just gets in their head. Some guys, that's not the way you handle it. Some guys, they ready to go. And those guys you got to be a little bit different with. You really got to like judge their personality. You got to talk to them and figure out if they like you stroking their ego, or if you like, some people just want the facts. So you just give them the facts and they calm down. Some guys don't like being disrespected, so you just be real respectful. And some guys, they're just sweet. They're like nice. They're sweethearts. So you don't want those guys. You just got, everybody's different. But de-escalation is a trick. It's like a trick you got to learn. You got to get really good at. Kapoy said, I got disqualified till November 2022. So you got about a year and a half. I heard that before. Thank you, Kim and Wayao. I know we're going to come back soon, but COVID kind of changed that for us. Noel Tigley, back to the drug thing. Person who's tried marijuana when they were younger, instant DQ? No. I sold marijuana. And I became a cop. They even ask you how many times you sold marijuana. Approximately. They do 1 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 100, more than 100, right? But if you do like under 50 times in your life when you were a kid and it was long enough ago, for me it was like I hadn't sold weed since I was 16. And I was in the process when I was 29. So it was like 13 years since I had sold weed. So you're good. Damn, I knew I should have lied. Doug the plug. Yeah. They called me Chronic because my last name's Korenic. So I was Doug Chronic my whole life. Actually, I never even told my classmates that when I was at HPD. And then when I was at HPD, right away they start calling me Chronic. I got good friends. My boy Inoka still calls me Chronic to this day. Yeah, anybody who's married, they understand de-escalation. Verbal Judo. What's up, Busy? How you doing, bro? Anybody likes to watch streamers like Action? Go follow Busy. Lucky Latu. What's up, guys? Okay. I think that's enough for the stories, though. Hey, for those of you guys that are here right now that signed up on Patreon and you're ready for the book club, make sure you get your books. I got a couple people told me they ordered them, that they're not going to be until Monday. It's all good because we don't even start till Monday. So Monday is when we're going to have our first members video for the book club. We're doing Sunny Skies, Shady Characters. I think we got 12 people in this first group. If you want to get involved, there's still time. Just go over to my Patreon, patreon.com/Doug Korenic. Sign up. You can give in any amount. It's not about the money, so whatever you feel like giving. And then you'll get an email from me. And then we're going to start on Monday. We'll connect. I'll do a video. And you guys will be able to follow along. And we'll talk about how we're going to do the book. We're going to read 2 chapters a week. I'm going to do a video just for you guys. And then probably around chapter 6-ish, 5 or 6, we're going to do a Zoom call. Whenever something important happens in the book, we'll do a Zoom and everybody can kind of give their 2 cents about what they remember about that time, how they related to it, all that good stuff. Brother Kamu said, I have a question for you in the DM. Cool. I'll check them out. I'll reply to them. If you guys have questions, please hit me up in my DMs, and I'll make sure I get to them. Oh, Chronics, you get the Chronic. 26 years I learned you how. Doug, did you ever find any big pot grows when you was a cop? Yeah, but nobody cares about buds anymore, Jovan. Honestly. Nobody cares. If we arrest you and you got weed in your pocket and you no more like license for them, then you got to get the charge just because it's like policy, we have to. But nobody really cares, honestly. Right when I got in, things started changing, but they still had the weed unit that would go chop down all the harvests. So yeah, let me know, guys. Let me know. I'm gonna get off now because it's just after. It's almost midnight. I got 9 minutes. I gotta try to get to bed. But I appreciate you guys coming through. Had a lot of visitors today. You guys are the best. Be safe out there in Hawaii. Stuff's popping off right now. And I hope they find baby Katana. Keep praying that they find baby Katana. And I'll keep you guys updated. I'm going to do a video about game rooms soon because I'm getting tons of questions about game rooms. Everybody's asking about the game rooms. So I'm going to do a live. My next live, probably tomorrow, will be about game rooms. So if you know stuff about game rooms or you get questions about game rooms or whatever and you want to join the chat, come on through tomorrow night, probably same time, 2300, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so 6 p.m. Hawaii time. And we'll talk about the game rooms, how that works, how they stay open. I know plenty of you guys been in game rooms. I know you guys like that fish game. I like the fish game. When we go undercover, one of my friends went undercover for a long time buying stolen credit cards at the game rooms because that's where all that stuff happens. So if your credit card ever got stolen, it went to a game room and they sold them to somebody. And while he was in there, he would just play the fish game. But he's not allowed to take money. So they give him $20. He'd play the 20. If he made 200, he had to lose that 200. Or you can give them to the other people you're playing with. So there's plenty of stories like that. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So bring your game room stories, game room questions. Come through. I'm on Instagram right now and on YouTube. So you can check them out on either side. And we'll have some fun. So until the next time, guys.